In today's video, we're going to talk about what you can expect for the opening day of the Velocicoaster. On this channel, we talk about all things Halloween, Harry Potter, and theme parks. If that's something you're interested in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
We finally have it. We have an opening date for the Velocicoaster, and it is June 10th, 2021, and we are so excited. We've been excited about this coaster ever since they announced that they were just building a giant churro stand. So in today's video, what we thought we would do is talk about what you should start seeing, like what you should start expecting to see starting now, leading up to that grand opening day, as well as what you should expect on June 10th. We are going to reflect on the grand opening of Hagrid's or that disaster, and we thought we would talk about what we think might be different because of some of the restrictions that are currently going on in the parks.
Last week, Universal announced pass holder preview dates for the Velocicoaster on May 2nd through the 5th.
Yeah.
Now, these dates were available to all levels of pass holders, but the registration times went very, very quickly.
Yeah, so supposedly, and the reason I say supposedly, they sent out emails, and a lot of people we saw were complaining that they never got emails. We were fortunate to get one, although I'll be honest, I wasn't checking my email. A buddy of ours sent me a text, was like, hey, this is open, and luckily I got a spot for May 3rd, but yeah, there's a lot of people who were pretty mad because they said they never received anything.
I actually got my email about 20 minutes after Tyler did, but for work reasons I can't go anyway, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But they are using
Solo trip.
they are using a similar system to the one that they used for the Premier Pass Holder preview for the two HHN houses last September.
Yeah, so for like Diet, HHN Light, HHN 29.5. It's got a ton of nicknames. If you recall, they opened up two houses to daytime guests, and there was like a preview for it, for, like she said, for Premier Pass holders. It was a disaster, and I'm guessing that this was very similar.
The sign-up process was a disaster.
The sign-up process was kind of like everything was just limited, and then the system just gets overran. So we understand there's a lot of people there's a high demand for this stuff, but it is frustrating.
If these previews go anything like the HHN Light previews did, we think they're going to be very, very successful.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to go through both of the houses.
I did.
He had a hard time with the system, but I did get to go through both houses on that Premier Pass Holder preview day, and the waits were very, very minimal.
It wasn't that bad. I think you waited like 30 minutes for one of them, and then like 15 maybe minutes for the other one.
Yeah, I got unlucky, and right when I got to the front of the line for the one that I had to wait 30 minutes for, they had a cash change. And so that was the only reason that wait wasn't 15 minutes.
Yeah, so barring anything like that, barring any like technical difficulties with the Velocicoaster, we expect a similar waiting time for it, maybe 30 minutes to, I'd say, an hour tops. I think they made it limited enough to keep the line short, but they tried to make it accessible enough to where a fair amount of people can experience this. If you successfully registered, you should have received a confirmation email, and then closer to your date, how I would guess it would work is they will send you an email with a QR code, sort of how it worked for the HHN Light event, and that's how you'll get onto the ride. That does mean, unfortunately, even if, say, the system said you had a time slot, if you didn't receive that email, you probably actually aren't registered. They have some problems like that. That's exactly what happened to me during the HHN Light event. So it kind of sucks, but they could only offer it to a certain amount of people. Keep in mind, there will not be a standby line on these dates, so even if you're a pass holder, no standby line. But in a minute, we are going to discuss why you shouldn't be so upset, because we think there will be other opportunities to ride the Velocicoaster before opening day.
Many people have speculated that there may be some unannounced soft openings between the Passholder preview dates and that grand opening of June 10th.
There is no way that there aren't at least a few of these like soft openings, because it's a full 35 days between the last date of this event and the grand opening.
Yeah.
They're not just going to leave the coaster
Just
vacant for 35 days. It's just not going to happen.
No, but we do expect, if these soft openings happen, that you will have to have a virtual queue to ride it.
Yeah, with social distancing and everything that they've still got going on in the parks, I don't think they're going to want people just crowding around the opening, like the front entrance of the Velocicoaster. That's how you sort of see it with some of the other things. People just crowd around because they hear that, hey, they're going to do a soft opening. Right. I think they are going to do everything within their power to keep that from happening. It's kind of in a tight area anyways.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just don't. And it's going to be such high demand. I just don't see them doing it the way that they did it for, say, like Born Stuntacular, which was like a lower demand, but they still sort of did the same thing. If you were standing around, you might get in. It's not going to happen that way, in our opinion. Instead, what we think will happen is people will just be looking at their app, and then they'll see Velocicoaster popped up, and it'll just be like, and it'll be you just clicking vigorously, and you might get a chance to ride it that day. And now to the question that's on everybody's mind. That opening date, June 10th, what is going to happen? Are they going to do virtual line only, or are we going to see long waits in a standby line?
When Hagrid's opened on June 13th, 2019, people reported waiting over 8 hours
That's this many.
to ride Hagrid's, and the line was backed all the way up into Seuss Landing.
It was a disaster. Like, seriously, I mean, there were some unforeseen things that happened. The ride has... It's had trouble ever since opening.
Right.
It's gotten a little bit better, a little bit more reliable, but just things that you can't really account for.
Yeah.
I just don't know if they are going to allow that type of standby line right now.
I agree. With all the social distancing protocols that are in place, we just find it hard to believe that Universal is going to let such a massive line pile up in the parks.
Yeah, and something that we have been asked is like, well, with the capacity limits on the parks, they could probably do it. And like, don't you think the line would only be 4 or 5 hours?
No.
And it's no, because we've been there recently.
Oh, God.
And like the Hulk was like 2 hours, and Forbidden Journey was like 90 minutes,
Yeah.
and then Hagrid's was virtual only, but it was still, people were still waiting like 3 hours. So just take everybody's going to be wanting to ride the Velocicoaster. Take that right there, and you've got like a 6 or 7 hour line. That's not happening. I say it's not happening. It could. We don't know anything other than we're kind of speculating.
Right.
I just don't think it's likely. I'm not saying there won't be a standby line, because we actually have 2 theories, and it's really the only 2 theories that there can be about how they might do things. But I just don't see them having a free-for-all who can get in line first, and then having a 9-hour wait.
I agree. I just think they realize what a nightmare that would be with, all their social distancing protocols and rules that are in place right now. But like Tyler said, we do have 2 theories on how the opening day could go. And our first theory is that they might do something like they did with the HHN lighthouses. So we were there on the Sunday after the Passholder preview. And the way that it worked is, as soon as they opened the gates for Universal Studios, people took off running to those 2 lines. And for a certain amount of time, or until a certain amount of people got in line.
Yeah, I think they had like a marker where once people piled up to that they
point.
shut down the entrance.
Exactly. And so they let people get in a standby line to a certain point, and then they closed the line and said it was at capacity, and the rest of the day, the only way that you could get in line for those 2 houses was if you had a virtual queue. So we think it's possible that they do something like this for the opening day or the opening week of the Velocicoaster, to let some people get in the standby line and kind of have a little bit of a crowd in the queues, but manage how long that wait time is, so it's not backed out to the entrance of the park.
Yeah, so basically what they could do is let it get to a certain point and then not release any virtual queues for, say, an hour to let that line die down.
Right.
And try to keep it as small as possible and try to keep it from overflowing into the rest of the park.
Yes. And so the second scenario that we think is possible is that they just go strictly virtual queue for the entire line and do not have a standby line at all.
Yeah, and so if you've ever been to the parks and tried to get a Hagrid's virtual queue, it can be frustrating, and it sometimes it's very hard because they'll pop up and time slots just go.
Yeah.
And so, in my opinion, I think it would be a little bit more if they went strictly virtual queue. I think it would be slightly more spots than what they have for Hagrid's, but not many. It's still going to be very hard because that's one of those days, June 10th, if they go purely virtual, everybody's just going to be staring at their phones. You're going to be able to ride everything else. No problem.
Anything else you want. So if that is the case and they do go virtual queue only with the Velocicoaster opening, we do have a few tips to help you score those virtual queues. The first tip is that you have to be somewhere on Universal property to get that virtual queue.
Yeah, we've gotten queues for Hagrid's while we were in our hotel room at the Hard Rock, but we seem to have better luck if we are closer to the parks or actually in the parks. I don't know why. It could just be user error. Probably is.
Probably. But we would suggest being at least in City Walk when they release those virtual queues, because you would absolutely hate to get that very first time slot and not be able to make it. Have to, hop on a bus and go through the main entrance of City Walk and miss that virtual queue.
And especially on June 10th, it is going to be busy. This isn't necessarily part of the tip, but be prepared for the parks to hit capacity before 10 o'clock. I mean, extremely, especially islands, it'll be at capacity.
So fast.
It might be at capacity right when it opens. Right, within an hour of opening. So be very prepared for that.
Our second tip is that when those virtual lines do open up, don't click the first one on the list. So when you do get through to the virtual line page, there'll be different time slots that you see, and we have never had luck trying to get the one at the very top of the page, because it seems like everyone is just clicking that very first one. So if you click further down on the page, one of the later time slots,
as she's demonstrating so well.
Yes, exactly. It seems like there's less competition with those later time slots, so we do suggest trying that. And our third tip to help you score those virtual queues is to make sure that you're on the app a few minutes before those time slots are supposed to release.
Yeah, so I have a theory. I don't think they're going to have the time slots like, say, Hagrid's does right now. I think they're going to try. I think they'll monitor the situation. If there's any kind of downtime, they probably won't release more until it's fixed.
Right.
I just think they're going to try to keep it from overflowing into the parks.
I agree.
So you may have to be on your phone all day that day.
Yeah.
But even if they do, let's just pretend that they do it on the time slots. Like Hagrid's is normally I can't remember, it's 11 to 4 something like that. So the 11 o'clock slot, we've gotten times as we've seen them released as early as 10:57 or as late as 11:03. So even if they do have those strict times,
it's a window.
Be looking on there 5 minutes before, and if you don't see them, keep looking, because they will release them eventually.
Absolutely. Just keep refreshing. But with that said, we would assume that there is going to be a specified time first thing in the morning where they release those initial time slots. So make sure you're prepared for that.
Yeah, it'll be a madhouse.
And our fourth tip to help you get those virtual passes is to make sure that everyone in your group is trying to reserve one.
Yeah.
So every phone that you have can have the Universal app, and that person can be trying to reserve a time slot while you are, because we've had times where I've been successful and Tyler hasn't, and vice versa.
And just a little etiquette, like just a small etiquette thing. I'm not telling you what to do. Sure, everybody wants to ride it, like, and everybody's excited, but we've done it a couple of times, like early in Hagrid's, where we'd both get time slots, and honestly, one of us would cancel them, because once you cancel it, it opens it back up to somebody else. I understand it's easy to just be like, I'm going to ride this as much as possible, and we've got 8 people, and we've all got, like, we just like to try to, like, sure, now on Hagrid's, if you want to do that, we know people who do it, and it's not really that big of a deal. But opening day is going to be, there's people coming down just for that day, and we're just going to try to keep that in mind. Also, small bonus tip, because one of us has done this before. Make sure when you get your time, make sure you you select the right amount of people. Don't just put like one on there and be like, oh, hey, look, I got us one, and the only person who gets to ride it is your lovely wife.
Okay, don't call me out like that. But when you do click that time slot, if it's not full, it will It will take you through to a page that has a slider where you can select between 1 and 8 guests. Yes, please make sure you select the correct number of people
include Tyler
before you confirm your time slot.
Alright guys, that wraps up today's video. We just wanted to touch base and sort of tell you what we think is going to be happening on those dates. We're really excited. We hope to see some of you down there. But in the comment section, let us know if you're going on opening day. We are so excited for June 10th.
Alright guys, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. You can hit that subscribe button and turn on that bell notification so you get an alert every time we post a new video.
Thanks for watching!